I met Helen when she was in her late 40s. She came to see me because she'd recently discovered trail running, and she was loving it. Being out in nature, being social because she was running with a group of ladies her age, she'd met some new friends, and she was really enjoying this new sport. But she came to see me because she was struggling to keep up with her friends. She found that she was constantly short of breath. If they needed to go up hills, she had to walk. She couldn't keep up with the group. And after her trail training sessions, she was totally exhausted. She found literally that she had to go home and sleep for a couple of hours in order to recover. Now, Helen thought that there was something wrong with her heart, which is why she came to see me. But her heart was absolutely fine. It was a problem with her lungs. When I checked her chest, her lungs were hyperinflated, and when I listened to her lungs, you could hear a slight wheezing breath sound. And a lung function test confirmed that she had asthma. She'd never had this problem as a child, but she said that she was highly allergic to dust and cats in childhood, but she thought that she'd grown out of that because she was no longer suffering the red eyes and the sneezing and all the itchy stuff. So Helen had developed what we call adult onset asthma. It was like her body was starting to react to things later on in life and causing her to experience shortness of breath, tiredness, and this terrible limitation when it came to physical exertion. So Helen was super relieved that there was nothing wrong with her heart, but she said to me in dismay, "Dr. Karen, does that mean that I need to take asthma pumps for the rest of my life?" So I explained to Helen that we might need to control her symptoms initially with an inhaler or two, but that it was entirely possible to improve her symptoms if we could identify the cause and the triggers and hopefully reduce or eliminate those. So the first step that we talked about was for Helen to decrease the natural amount of histamine in her system. Histamine is a molecule that facilitates the allergic reaction in the body, and asthma is one of the chronic allergic conditions that we have. So by reducing histamines in your body, you can reduce symptoms of allergies, including asthma. So the first thing that we discussed was Helen's diet. And I explained to her that if she followed a low histamine diet, this may well improve her asthma symptoms. So what does it mean to follow a low histamine diet? Well, you have to avoid foods that have high histamines. And these are foods that have been preserved typically. So any fermented foods, things like vinegars, kimchi, yogurt, kefir, aged cheeses, sauerkraut, and soy sauce. To avoid any processed or preserved meats like ham, salami, charcuterie of any type. To avoid alcohol, because alcohol is also a fermented product. And to avoid leftovers. If you leave food in your fridge for a couple of days, it also kind of ferments and it builds up histamines. And there are some foods that are naturally higher in histamines that it would be advisable to reduce, like spinach, avocado, tomatoes, eggplant, and citrus fruits. So what to do instead would be to eat unprocessed and fresh meat, chicken, fish and eggs. To include the vegetables that are low in histamines, and to incorporate grains that don't facilitate histamine release, like rice and quinoa. And then to eat foods that actually help to neutralize or eliminate histamines faster. And these are typically herbs and spices like oregano, basil, thyme and parsley. Bananas, sunflower seeds, papaya, bell pepper and strawberries help to facilitate the clearance of histamine from your system. I also asked Helen to try and reduce her exposure to potential allergens, dusts, pollens and mold in her environment. So this meant getting rid of feather pillows or feather duvets, making sure that her bedding and soft furnishings in the house were all hypoallergenic, getting rid of carpets or ensuring that carpets were vacuumed frequently, vacuuming the mattress, the bed and curtains on a frequent schedule, and making sure that her shelves and any surfaces were free from dust. It's quite a lot of work, but if one gets into a routine of ensuring that you eliminate dust from your environment, that can make a big difference. Also, making sure that there was no mold, getting a dehumidifier and getting those little pots that suck moisture from the cupboards, very, very helpful. And then I introduced Helen to breath work. Deep, controlled breathing is essentially a good exercise for the lungs, and it definitely can help to improve lung capacity and lung function. If you practice breath work regularly, you can definitely see an improvement in symptoms like shortness of breath and breathlessness on exertion. So over a couple of weeks, Helen saw a dramatic improvement in her trail running capacity. Obviously, she was using an inhaler at the beginning, which made a big difference, but over time, we were able to stop the use of a chronic inhaler, and she would only keep it for races or if she was feeling a bit tight before a training session. So Helen was able to continue her trail running, which she loved. She was keeping up with the group, which made her super happy, and generally her energy was better, because if you get good oxygen supply in your system, you just generally feel better, right? So this case illustrates that although many people believe asthma to be a chronic condition that requires daily medication with inhalers or cortisone or nebulizers, there is a potential that you can reduce your severity of asthma, you can reduce the frequency of asthma attacks, and you can definitely improve your quality of life through lifestyle changes that reduce the internal reaction that your body has to allergens. So implementing lifestyle change can reduce the necessity to take medications for asthma, and it can improve your quality of life.